up, you beautiful bastards? Hope you've had a fantastic Thursday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we need to talk about today is FOSTA/SESTA. If you haven't heard about this, it was a controversial mashup bill. FOSTA stands for Fight Sex Trafficking Online Act. SESTA stands for Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. Congress passed it in March. It got to the president signed it into law. And it turns out this is actually an incredibly troubling situation because even though on the surface it seems like it makes sense. Sex traffickers are bad, we should shut down sex traffickers. Makes sense, yes. But you have organizations like the ACLU, the EFF, millions of sex workers saying that this is not what we need. It's a terrible, harmful, deeply flawed law. And at the core of the problem is that the law conflates both sex work with sex trafficking. And also, before moving forward, just for transparency's sake, I'll let you know where I stand on the issue. Sex trafficking, of course, is horrible. It needs to be cracked down on. It needs to be just crushed. But as far as prostitution itself, I personally think that it should be legalized, it should be taxed, it should be treated like a job and safety measures put into place, both to prevent situations like sex trafficking, abuse, safety reasons, and I mean that whether it be violence or STD related. In my opinion, what people choose to do with their bodies is their own business as long as they're not harming anyone else. I mean, just like an oversimplified version is why is porn okay? Because there is a camera and it's meant for entertainment. But two or however many consenting adults can't do the same thing if it's not filmed and repurposed for entertainment. Let's put a system in place where we can crack down on the bad actors and keep everyone else safe. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but back to the story. In the past month, you may have actually heard of this story. One of the main focal points of this has been a website called Backpage. And it's actually important for us to talk about what happened with Backpage.com because it leads us to the current environment. For those who don't know, Backpage was a classified ad website that launched in 2004, and it became even more popular after Craigslist stopped hosting adult services ads in 2010 because their site still allowed those ads. And officials at Backpage.com had long been accused of using the site to facilitate prostitution and child sex trafficking. There had been charges in the past, those ended up getting dismissed, but then in 2017, a 2-year Senate investigation into online sex trafficking found that Backpage.com had, quote, knowingly concealed evidence of criminality. This by editing its adult ads. They reportedly scrubbed terms or images from ads that indicated illegal transactions, things like Lolita, teenage, rape, young. And after that investigation was published, Backpage shut down its adult ad section. The company had also been hit with several lawsuits filed by the victims, their families over the past few years in relation to the sex trade ads. But for the most part, throughout all of this, Backpage had been largely protected by Section 230 of the 1996 Communications Decency Act. That act giving a broad layer of immunity to online companies from being held liable for user-generated content. But on April 6th of this year, Backpage servers were seized and shut down in a raid by the Department of Justice, FBI, and other federal agencies. On April 9th, a federal judge in Arizona unsealed a 93-count indictment against Backpage creators Michael Lacey and James Larkin, as well as 5 others at the company. And it detailed stories of victims who had been trafficked on Backpage, some as young as 14. One who was forced to perform sex acts at gunpoint, was choked until she had seizures, and gang rape. Another was stabbed to death by a customer who then tried to burn her corpse. However, the Justice Department said that the case against Backpage does not rely on sex trafficking charges, but instead on charges connected to facilitating prostitution and money laundering. But the outrage around Backpage evading previous lawsuits pushed lawmakers to make changes to legislation that has shielded Backpage for years. And that brings us back to FOSTA/SESTA. The FOSTA/SESTA package enables victims and state prosecutors to pursue websites for facilitating sex trafficking or prostitution in criminal and civil court without being blocked by Section 230. Many believing that this bill was necessary since Section 230 was never intended to provide legal protection to websites that promote the sale of sex. But there were others upset with the passage of this bill. Internet firms and free speech advocates arguing that it would lead to censorship, it would stifle innovation. The Electronic Frontier Foundation calling it the most significant rollback to date of the protections for online speech in Section 230. Opponents of the bill arguing that it also wasn't necessary in the first place because the federal government already has the ability to prosecute facilitators of sex trafficking. And in fact, Backpage itself serves as an example of that. Trump signed this into law on April 11th, but the federal government took action against Backpage executives before that bill became a law, which led some to question why FOSTA/SESTA was even needed if such action could be taken without it. And on top of the free speech issue, the law has been widely rejected by sex workers' rights advocates and other experts saying that the sex workers are being put into immediate harm. And this is because sex workers have said online platforms give them a safe space, a safe alternative to just finding clients on the street. And as far as how it's safer, there was a Chicago sex worker who was interviewed by The Guardian who explained sites like Backpage gave her the ability to negotiate terms in advance, request that clients provide references, run cross-checks on clients' email addresses. She could communicate with other sex workers about dangerous or violent people to avoid. And on top of all of that, there are people arguing that the law doesn't even fight sex trafficking that well. Gene Brugman, executive director of Freedom Network USA, a coalition of anti-trafficking advocates, said, shutting down every service provider and website will not end sex trafficking. What it will do is push traffickers to overseas websites that are beyond the reach of law enforcement, making it harder to prosecute them and harder to find them through the victims. You also have people like Ginger Banks, who's become an outspoken voice on this issue, pointing out that full-service sex workers are already at a higher risk of being murdered due to their job, and taking away their resources to screen through violent clients is just going to make that worse. And now, just under a month after this bill was signed into law, we're already seeing seeing negative stories coming out. Laura Lamoon, who is a sex trafficking survivor and writer, saying, pimps seem to be coming out of the woodwork since this all happened. They're taking advantage of the situation sex workers are in. This is why I say FOSTA SESTA have actually increased trafficking. I've had pimps contacting me. They're leeches. They make money off of sex workers' misfortune. Also, the sex work blog Tits and Sass saying that there have been reports of 13 sex workers having gone missing. 2 have been confirmed dead. Countless others have been reportedly assaulted and raped, and they say this is a result of being pushed offline and back into the streets to find work. And in general, it appears that all this law has really done is push what is going to continue to happen back into the darkness. And when you have massive numbers shrouded in darkness, horrible stuff is going to happen to them. More obviously does need to be done to protect vulnerable people, but you don't really accomplish that by making more people vulnerable. But all of that said, like I always try to do on the Philip DeFranco Show, that's the story. Also my opinion, and I'd love to hear from you whether you agree or disagree in those comments down below. What's your takeaway from this situation? But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by Postmates. Postmates, of course, a fantastic delivery on-demand app. You want something from the store, your favorite restaurant, boom, open up the app, they will deliver it to your home, your work, your wherever. And for me personally, it is just such a lifesaver. I mean, it's obviously incredibly convenient, but also just the amount of time you save. Thank you. So if you're a new customer, you want to check it out like many from the nation already have, go to postdefranco.com, download the app, make sure you enter in the new code PDS. When you use that promo code, they will give you $100 in free delivery credit. So check it out, link down below. And the first bit of awesome is we got a trailer for the new Robin Hood. It stars Taron Egerton and Jamie Foxx. The trailer is interesting and I am hopeful for something badass. Then we got a music video involving the crossover everyone was waiting for, Celine Dion and Deadpool. Then we had an interesting video from Ted Ed on what's the difference between hibernation and sleep. Life Noggin on the Alice in Wonderland syndrome. We had John Mayer on Hot Ones. We also got a trailer for The Catcher Was a Spy starring Paul Rudd. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. Then very quickly, I'll mention Camille Cosby. She is the wife of Bill Cosby. She called the case and verdict against her husband mob justice. And my personal response to this is, well, one, I mean, it's not the most shocking statement. I mean, she is stuck by him till now. But also two, nah, it's not mob justice unless the mob that you are referring to is the around 60 women he is accused of sexually assaulting and drugging. So yeah, I guess you could call it mob justice when you have a person who allegedly sexually assaulted and drugged enough women to make up a mob. And in my eyes, the only thing that is unfortunate about this quote-unquote justice is that based off of time restrictions, he is only really being held accountable for one case, and it's so many years after. Also the fact that in her statement, she compared what Bill Cosby is going through right now to that of situations with Emmett Till and Daryl Hunt is disgusting to me. Those stories, if you don't know, Hunt was wrongly convicted of murdering and raping a white woman in the 80s, and Till was a black 14-year-old that was lynched in Mississippi after he allegedly flirted with a white woman. And on top of how just horrible that situation is by itself, years and years after, the woman came out and said, you know, he'd never actually even flirted with me. To compare those horrible, disgusting stains on American history to that of your husband, who is accused by 60 women, not just a single accuser, not just white, very similar stories. That is overwhelmingly pathetic, but unfortunately not surprising. And that is all the breath you're worthy of today. Then we had model Gigi Hadid in the news. She's recently come under fire for the cover image on May 2018 Vogue Italia. People saying it looks excessively photoshopped, that she looks like a completely different person, and some saying it just looks like straight up blackface. I'll let you compare and contrast yourself, but it should also be noted this is not a new kind of situation or a scandal for the person that photographed this. That photographer being Stephen Klein. He also came under fire for a similar situation with Kim Kardashian last year. People saying at that time that it looked like he had darkened Kim Kardashian. Also, Gigi released a statement on her Insta story today saying, "This is a photo of me returning home from shooting my Italian Vogue cover on April 3rd. You can see the level I had been bronzed to on set that day. Please understand that my control of a shoot, 1, is non-existent in terms of creative direction, 2, ends completely when I leave set, and anything done to a photo in post is out of my control fully. Bronzing and Photoshop is a style that S. Klein has done for many years, and I believe was what was expected from the shoot, to show me in a different way creatively." Then going on to add, "Please know that things would have been different if my control of the situation was different. Regardless, I want to apologize because my intention is never to diminish those concerns or take opportunities away from anyone else, and I hope this can be an example to other magazines and teams in the future." And closing, there are real issues regarding representation in fashion. It's our responsibility to acknowledge those issues and communicate through them to work towards a more diverse industry. And that's kind of a little all over the place response. It's the photographer's style, it was to be expected. I would have personally done something different. There's also an apology and then call to action. And so I'll pass the question off to you. Is this situation a big deal? Yes, no? Do you think people are making a mountain out of a molehill? Let me know. Then, if you are someone that lives in Indianapolis at around around 9 o'clock in the morning yesterday. You're going westbound on I-70 near Holt Road. The police would like to ask you to return the up to around $600,000 that just got blown out onto the highway when the back security door of a Brinks security truck just opened. The Brinks truck driver said that another person that was driving, aka a narc, pointed to the back of the truck to let him know that the door was just open, and so then he stopped to address the situation. As of right now, we don't know if it was human error, a mechanical failure, although to kind of paint the scene for you, and it's not shocking. Trooper said that there were people just jumping over fences from adjacent neighborhoods, grabbing the money. They had pockets full of money, and police are saying if you have the money, please turn it in, specifically saying if you're willing to, in good conscience, turn it back in. There's amnesty, there's no real questions asked if you're willing to give it back, and it appears that it's something police are hoping people take seriously, since if you did take money, you could be charged with theft. In particular, police said they are looking for a school bus driver that stopped the school bus and grabbed money. Also, 4 individuals in a white pickup truck that made off with a bag of money. And as far as my official statement here, it's, you never want to break the law. My non-official statement is I'm a big believer in finders keepers, especially when you find something from a large, faceless organization that has a shit ton of insurance. As far as I'm concerned, unofficially, Brinks just donated $600,000 to the ground. And you know what? The ground is there to support all of us, so thank you for your contribution. And then let's talk about this situation with Rudy Giuliani that has everyone freaking out about the Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels situation. You have a lot of people saying this is it, Rudy accidentally put the nail in Trump's coffin. Other people saying no, everything seems like a calculated release. This really doesn't mean anything. So let's break it down. Last night, Rudy Giuliani, former New York City mayor, recent addition to the Trump legal team, did an interview with Sean Hannity. And during that interview, he revealed that Donald Trump reimbursed Michael Cohen for the payment to Stormy Daniels.
Having something to do with paying some Stormy Daniels woman $130,000, I mean, which is going to turn out to be perfectly legal. That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through the law firm, and the president repaid it.
Oh, I didn't know he did.
Yep.
There's no campaign finance law.
Zero.
So that's the main clip that blew up last night, went viral, an acknowledgement that Donald Trump paid Michael Cohen back for the payment to a porn star that was alleging that she had an affair with him. But before moving forward, it's also important to see what else Giuliani said, more specifics. Regarding how Trump paid Cohen back, Giuliani said,
when I heard Cohen's retainer of $35,000 when he was doing no work for the president, I said, but that's how he's repaying. That's how he's repaying it, with a little profit and a little margin for paying taxes. For Michael.
But do you know the president didn't know about this? I believe that's what
he didn't
Michael
know about
said.
the specifics of it, as far as I know. But he did know about the general arrangement that Michael would take care of things like this, like I take care of things like this for my clients. I don't burden them with every single thing that comes along. These are busy people.
And after Giuliani made these statements on Hannity, people immediately began pointing to previous statements made by Cohen and Trump. And just in case you don't remember, in Cohen's very specific statement from February 13th, he said neither the Trump organization nor the Trump campaign was a party to the transaction with Ms. Clifford, and neither reimbursed me for the payment, either directly or indirectly. And then, of course, there were Trump's comments on Air Force One on April 5th.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
But now back to Giuliani, because after the Hannity interview, Giuliani ends up speaking with the Washington Post, and he goes into greater detail. When asked when was the president told about these payments, Giuliani said he wasn't, since it was somewhere between 10 and 5 days before the election, and he wasn't told. But even if he was told, he wouldn't have remembered it like I wouldn't have remembered it. When he paid out of his own personal funds, and if you listen to Cohen's statement, it was very careful. He said, I wasn't paid from the campaign and I wasn't paid from the Trump organization. Absolutely true, he was paid by Donald Trump's personal funds. Giuliani also gave them more detail about the payments to Cohen, saying that they took place over a period probably in 2017, and saying there may have been one in 2018. Also saying, do the arithmetic, right? $35,000 a month, probably starting in January or February. By the time you get to $250,000, it's all paid off. Remember, he also paid for the taxes. Then this morning we had President Trump tweeting, and it very much appears to be a copy-paste lawyer text. Mr. Cohen, an attorney, received a monthly retainer not from the campaign and having nothing to do with the campaign, from which he entered into, through reimbursement, a private contract between between two parties. This is 100% written by a lawyer. A private contract between two parties known as a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA. These agreements are very common among celebrities and people of wealth. In this case, it is in full force and effect and will be used in arbitration for damages against Miss Clifford Daniels. The agreement was used to stop the false and extortionist accusations made by her about an affair, despite already having signed a detailed letter admitting that there was no affair. Prior to its violation by Miss Clifford and her attorney, this was a private agreement. Money from the campaign or campaign contributions played no role in this transaction. Then this morning we had Rudy Giuliani going on Fox and Friends where he said this.
Imagine if that came out on October 15th, 2016, in the middle of the last debate with Hillary Clinton.
So to make it go away, they made this
Cohen
payment.
didn't even ask. Cohen made it go away. He did his job.
And that statement could prove to be troublesome for Trump because it does sound like he's saying this decision was made, this woman was paid off because it would hurt their campaign. A big part of this new Trump defense is it was not related to the campaign. It was a personal matter. Right in the president's legalese light tweet, he wrote, a private contract between two parties. This was a private agreement. And this is a note that Lawrence Noble hit on. Lawrence is a senior director and general counsel at the Campaign Legal Center. And he said, if the purpose of this was to stop Daniels from hurting the campaign, then what you have is Cohen made a loan to the campaign. And it was an excessive loan because lending the campaign money is a contribution. It was an excessive contribution until it's repaid. And based off of Giuliani's statement, who is a member of Donald Trump's legal team, that appeared to be a big part of it. And also, because Cohen is repaid, that would make it a loan, so that would also need to be listed on the books. It would be required to be reported. And according to FEC.gov, if any person, including a relative or friend of the candidate, gives or loans the candidate money for the purpose of influencing any election for federal office, the funds are not considered personal funds of the candidate, even if they are given to the candidate directly. Instead, the gift or loan is considered a contribution from the donor to the campaign, subject to the per-election limit and reportable by the campaign. This is true even if the candidate uses the funds for personal living expenses while campaigning. And that per-election limit part is also why people have been pointing out that it's not only a contribution that seemingly was not reported, but an excessive contribution. Also, based on Giuliani's statements to both the Washington Post and Sean Hannity as far as how the payment process went, it sure as hell sounds like that if we bend over backwards to act like Donald Trump didn't know any of this was going on, that based off of the long-term payment plan and the specific comments, by the time that Donald Trump made those statements on April 5th saying that he didn't know, that's a lie. And once again, just past the regular legal troubles that we're talking about with this situation. One, it should be concerning to you that you have a president or an administration that has these secrets because it does make them vulnerable to blackmail. It does make them vulnerable to extortion. But then also too, I know that we're so far down this road, but when we have people in power lying, that should matter. We've gotten so used to it that it's almost not interesting anymore, that it's just exhausting because there's so many situations like this. But when the source of the lies comes from the top, when the source of the lies is also the same source that's trying to make it so that people don't trust anything whatsoever in the news, unless it's a piece that's praising them, that should be of concern. I get that it can be exhausting, but truth should matter. People should be held accountable. We've got to try, even if it's just a small percentage, we've got to try to push through the tribalism. We have to try and push through the, oh, well, I have to defend my person and fuck your person. I don't know. That's where I'm going to end this one, of course, like every show. That's the story, that's my opinion, and then I'd love to hear yours. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. And remember, if you liked this video, you like what I'm trying to do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell to turn on notifications. Also, if you missed yesterday's Philip DeFranco show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you want to watch a brand new behind the scenes vlog, click or tap right there to watch that. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.